Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is our special continuous coverage of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's US visit, a crucial one because it comes as a first visit since Donald Trump assumed the US presidency for a second time. In a few hours from now, Prime Minister Modi will be meeting and holding a bilateral meeting with the US president. But before that, on your screens is the visual of that bilateral meeting that took place between the Indian Prime Minister and the National Security Advisor of US. Mike Waltz. So that, of course, a key meeting there. Remember, Mike Waltz has been co-chairing the Samosa Caucus, as it is called, along with Congressman Ro Khanna. And they have been really pushing forward the social, economic and other aspects of the development of US, but more importantly, why India is more inclined towards the new US NSAs, because he himself has been rather pro-India. He's been talking about how China is a threat. He recognizes the fact that China has been following a rather notorious expansionist policy, whether it's Taiwan or South China Sea, or even what it did at the line of actual control with India. On the broadcast, I continue to be joined by my guests. Ray Locker has joined us on the broadcast. Along with him, I also have Christopher Hale. Good evening and namaskar to both of you. Christopher, to you first, how do you see this visit? An important one. There are, of course, certain challenges that India is ready for, but, you know, it's Donald Trump. He can be unpredictable. He can be bizarre. And so you can't really say he's going to follow one linear path when it comes to his relationship with India.
No, I would agree. I think that we have to understand, as much as we call him a businessman, a mercurial person, et cetera, the most important construct of understanding Donald Trump, as has been for the past decade, is a politician. And the issue that we have that really faces India today in this meeting and going forward is that there's really two bases, two people that got Donald Trump to election in November 2024 that are diametrically opposed to the question of India. The first is the MAGA base, the original MAGA Trump that got Trump 1.0 through, and they have intense skepticism to any immigration, to international relations. They want high tariffs. They don't want cooperation with India and the rest of the world. They're heavily isolationist. The America First, the MAGA movement, and this really came to a head after Trump's election this past year, because really the second part of the Trump movement is the Silicon Valley movement, which is fueled by belief in international working together, cooperation, and immigration, legal immigration into the United States, particularly through high tech, high skilled programs like H-1B. Think Elon Musk, think Vivek Ramaswamy. And Vivek Ramaswamy made a
but that's the
claim that
point,
H-1B
Christopher.
was...
There are, of course, aspects of the MAGA, of the Republican supporters, that are certainly racist. They have, in fact, displayed extreme racism on social media as far as Indians and India is concerned. But then you had an Elon Musk coming out and supporting the H-1B visa and the skilled workers that come through it. You had a Donald Trump saying that, you know, that's not how it should be. So it's not as if the entire Republican and the MAGA supporters are racist and they're anti-immigration. A certain aspect perhaps is.
No, and I want to be very clear. I think there's two halves of this movement, and I think that this is going to be the big fight going forward. Vivek Ramaswamy says that H-1B visas should actually increase, and his argument is I think probably really hard to consume for a lot of Americans, myself included. He argues that the industriousness of native-born Americans is lower than Indian immigrants into the United States. And I think what's interesting about it is the key going forward is, who is Donald Trump listening to? Is he listening to Elon Musk, who is pro H-1B? Is he listening to Vivek Ramaswamy, who is pro H-1B? Or is he listening to Stephen Miller, his top advisor at the White House, who comes directly from MAGA 1.0, who has criticized H-1B visas, immigration, legal immigration in the United States, and was decreased significantly, and who is protectionist, isolationist, and Steve Bannon. So I think that is really the question going forward for India. Is Donald Trump listening to Steve Bannon And Steve Miller, is Donald Trump listening to Vivek
Okay.
Ramaswamy and Elon Musk? I think his general sentiments are towards Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk, but he's a politician, and so I think the question is where can he coalesce his base? And I think that'll be the big question going forward.
Christopher, let me take this across to Ray Locker. Ray Locker, let's ask you the question. Who's Donald Trump listening to? Is he listening to Elon Musk, whom he says will not get approvals until Donald Trump thinks they're right to be approved, certain decisions? Or, is he going to go by his own instinct of what he is being called a rather transactional man?
Follow the money. I mean, he was listening to Elon Musk. Elon Musk invested $290 million worth of advertising spending in the 2024 election to get Trump elected. And he's there in the Oval Office. He's running wild in the White House, doing whatever he wants. That's who Trump is listening to the extent he's listening to anybody. He does whatever he wants. He takes, he's very transactional. Some would call it corrupt. I would call it corrupt. I mean, Musk comes in there, says, I want to do stuff. And by the way, we're going to have the State Department buy $400 million worth of Tesla Cybertrucks. And so, that's what I see happening from the Trump end of this. And then you have people like Mike Waltz, who's a serious person, and he's doing things what he can to find common ground with India.
But if it is about following the money and if it's listening to Elon Musk, would he then be a little less harsh on India, considering the fact that for Elon Musk, India is one of the largest markets he still hasn't entered in, perhaps wanting to dominate as well?
Oh, yeah, I think so. And I think one of the smart things that Prime Minister Modi is doing is he's getting here quickly. He knows how to play Trump. He knows all the buttons to push with Trump. Oh, I love you. You're a dynamic person. You're doing all this great stuff. And then the other people who are part of Modi's entourage are meeting with lower level Trump officials, doing the things that regular nation states do to further their interests. And they're doing the kind of stuff that Trump can't blow up, like in a news conference or with some offhand comment, like he does all the time. Like he's sitting with King Abdullah of Jordan, and he starts talking about how the United States is going to take over Gaza, which is never going to happen. But that becomes then, the sideshow that people focus on.
But you also have the Jordan King saying that we will not be absorbing the Palestinians, something that Donald Trump was trying to push over to Jordan and other countries. But let me get in Raymond Vickery on this. Raymond Vickery, talking about the Middle East, it is an important region, something that Donald Trump has been talking about. And the U.S. leads the IMEC, the India-Middle East Economic European Union Economic Corridor. And that is perhaps one of the things and one of the international groupings that Donald Trump wouldn't want to withdraw from, considering the fact that it comes across with an aim to counter China.
Well, that's exactly right. He would be interested in that because Saudi Arabia and other Arab countries are involved, and he's trying to win a Nobel Peace Prize by bringing about peace in the Middle East. To me, it's not realistic to think that that corridor is going to come into being anytime soon. The problem is in the Trump world of approaching everything as a transaction, that you don't do anything unless you get something back from it, and you don't really say what you mean. You say something that's extreme in order to get you to where you think is some concession from the other side. This is upending international relations, particularly
Mr. Vickery,
in the Middle.
I've always stood against this description of Trump being called a transactional man for the reason that there is no world leader who will be doing charity when it comes to foreign relations, isn't it? It's always been a transactional relationship.
Well, let's see what a transaction is. It's really a question of determining what your self-interest is. And there are leaders, and hopefully Prime Minister Modi is one of them. Certainly President Biden was, and others, Republican and Democrat, who have viewed the U.S. interest as larger than what I get out of this particular issue immediately, and looking at a broader picture of peace and stability throughout the world, promotion of democracy, promotion of human rights, of looking at how we build peace for the long run. That is not the Trump approach. The Trump approach is that of a real estate magnate, and that is, what am I getting out of this today and next week? Forget about what happens to the next generation. Forget about climate change. Forget about whether that's in the interest of India. Sure, you have quid pro quo overall, but it's a question of timeline, and it's a question of vision. And Trump has none of that. Trump doesn't have a vision except what is going to benefit him. And what his view is, what benefits him is what benefits the United States today. Now, India does a great job in playing Trump as well as anybody, playing to that sense of ego, to that sense of immediate return. And that's what I mean by transaction. It's not that people don't want to get something out of it, but it's a question of what it is you want to get. Is it just today? Is it just for me? Or is it for a broader development of peace and prosperity throughout the world?
Okay, let me get David Sofer to respond to you. David, you want to respond to what Mr. Vickery is saying as far as, the entire perception of Donald Trump being visionless and transactional is concerned?
And second of all, politics, and especially geopolitical affairs, has always been transactional. We are cleaning up 3 historic wars that have been a huge contagion effect, whether if it's in the Middle East, if it's in Russia. And as far as transactions goes, I mean, let's face it, the corrupt Biden administration took billions of dollars, not only from the Chinese, they took from the Russians, and they took from Iran as well. If we see what happened with John Kerry and all that, so we are now cleaning up these wars, and it's a difficult thing. And we have a common vision with India of diplomacy, democracy, and strength. And is that transactional? Absolutely, it is. So what he's saying is, I think it's not actually the case. We are the party of peace. We are the party of prosperity, and we are cleaning up the wars, and that's it. And by the way, that's happening very fast. Whether that's Russia, Middle East, and preventative as well. Just a few months ago, you had our friends in China flying
David, we'll have to wait and watch how this really moves forward. For the first few weeks, of course, Donald Trump has rattled the world with, statements left, right, and center about tariffs, about the wars. So we'll really have to see. But Ray Locker, coming to you, that very big meeting between Donald Trump and the Indian Prime Minister is scheduled in a few hours from now. And it's not just India and US who are looking at it closely. It's the world looking at this meeting closely because it's important for very many reasons. For you, what would be the big talking points that might figure in those bilateral talks?
Well, nothing specific on a policy level. It's just the general relationship between the two men, which I think is strong. And I think Modi comes out of it with a sense that Trump likes me, he likes India, we're in good shape, we don't have the problems that other countries may have with him. And so that kind of takes a load off of their minds in India, like we don't have to worry about this part of our relationship. And I think that just makes India look stronger to the rest of the world.
Christopher, do you want to come in on this? For you, what are your expectations from this visit?
Was that to me?
Christopher, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
this
I'm
is for you.
sorry. Yeah, I mean, I think that what the other guests have said is that, like, I think that it should be tempered. The visuals might be positive for Prime Minister Modi today, but on the trip home to New Delhi, who knows what Donald Trump will tweet? So I think that any gains will be short-lived, both positively, or short losses will be negative as well. What really matters after Prime Minister Modi goes home, once again, is who Donald Trump is listening to. I will say this, your prime minister, more than almost any leader in the world, understands Donald Trump and understands how to play him well. He is a quintessential ambassador for the Indian people. He had strong relations with Donald Trump's predecessors. Just in September, he came and personally visited Joe Biden in Delaware at his house. So I think Prime Minister Modi, no matter who is in charge of the United States, understands the delegacies well. He could write a memoir on the art of power. And so I do think this is going to be tougher than any one person he's dealt with, including the first version of Trump. So I think that to win, he's doing the right thing. We're not throwing him a state dinner tonight. It's snowing here in D.C. and cold, but he made this trip after visiting beautiful Paris. So he's smart. He understands the need to come here. But that being said, after the handshakes, after the smiles, the photo ops, after he goes home, the big thing is going to be who is Donald Trump listening to going forward, because that will be the biggest determinant of what happens.
Yeah. And it's about 10 p.m. here, and about 1.5 hours from now is when we're expecting that press conference to be held by Donald Trump, where he's going to be announcing the tariffs. Let's wait and watch if India is on that list and how this really goes forward as far as the meeting is concerned between the two leaders. Thank you very much to all of you gentlemen, Raymond, Vickery, Ray Locker, David Sofair, and Christopher Hale, and to all my guests earlier on the show. Thank you very much to all of you for sharing your perspective. With that, ladies and gentlemen, it's a wrap on this broadcast. Our coverage of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to United States of America continues. We'll keep getting you details of that big bilateral meeting between the Indian Prime Minister and the American President. Up next is Sneha Koshi.